Welcome to Reddit Reader. Today we are going to dive into the crazy and insane stories on r/i.t.a.h.
Our first story comes from user Stealthy Breakfast and is titled, "Would I be the a-hole if I stayed friends with someone everyone else agreed to disown?" The drama behind it. For context, 3 people involved. Let's name them Chandler, Monica, and Joey to make it easy. We're all 23. Everybody is close to each other. Chandler and Monica are in a serious relationship. Joey is Chandler's best friend since childhood and they live together. One night, Joey hosts a party at their place while Chandler is out of town. When we get there, it's clear Joey is going through some pretty serious shit. He's drinking heavily, doing casual tabs of acid, edibles, and is probably in the middle of a major manic episode that we've never seen in him before. After we all leave, Monica stays to crash in her BF's bedroom. Just before she goes in, Joey stops her in the hall. He pins her against the wall and tries to kiss her. She leaves immediately and tells Chandler. Chandler, understandably, cut the lease and moved out ASAP. He let the rest of us know what happened and explained he's never talking to Joey again. Everyone in our group is horrified and collectively agreed to cut ties with Joey too. The girls in our group echo similar concerns about also feeling uncomfortable around him. I don't mean to make excuses for him, but I'm worried it might be a mental health thing more than an issue with his character or morals. He's normally never like that, and this guy lost all of his social support overnight. Regardless, I'm conflicted because our female friends explained they've felt this way for a while, so maybe it's been a long time coming? Would I be the a-hole if I stayed neutral in all of this? This is what Reddit had to say on this one. You would signal to your female friends that you are untrustworthy by association. In a case like this, you might want to be neutral, but you won't be viewed as such. Pinning against the wall is one step further than just tries to kiss her. I understand why his friends left him. Having a mental health issue and giving in to repressed desire are not mutually exclusive. If all your female friends are saying he makes them uncomfortable, then maybe there's something behind it. I get you want to help him, but I think you need to consider what you're willing to risk, because it sounds like you're risking losing all your friends. Whatever you do, have reasonable expectations of the outcome and accept the consequences. Our next story comes from user expert maybe 5106 and is titled, "Am I the a-hole for not accepting double standard from my in-laws and voicing this to my fiancé?" For context, I, 23 female, and my fiancé, 23 female, have been together for 5 years and we were best friends all through high school, so I've known her family for almost 10 years. She has 5 siblings and she falls right in the middle. Her youngest sibling is 11 male. I feel her family has significant double standards or different expectations for each family member. Her 2 older siblings, 26 female and 24 male, have little to no expectations from their parents and are minimally involved in family stuff. Basically, they live their own lives and never get shit about it. However, my fiancé and I have completely different expectations from them. We are both in school and working full-time as well as trying to keep up a semi-normal social life and personal lives. Whenever we can't make it to a family, which isn't very often, we hear about it for months afterwards, even from distant family members who tell us that her parents say we're never around, etc. They often expect us to watch her 11-year-old brother, which we do when we can, but when we can't they get pissed. They baby her little brother to a ridiculous extent and hold us accountable for things I feel should not be on us. For holidays, her older siblings split their time between their family and their significant others' families. However, when we do that, it's not enough. Last Christmas, my fiancé talked to my mother-in-law about our plans, explaining we'd be by them in the morning until my family's plans started, then be with my family for 3 hours, then come back to her parents' house and spend the rest of the night there. About 2.5 hours into Christmas with my family, my mother-in-law started texting saying it was BS and we never put them first. My fiancé was in tears because she thought everything was fair and clear as far as our plans, but it still wasn't enough. This happens often. One Mother's Day, my mother-in-law didn't want to celebrate as my father-in-law was out of town and she was upset about it. My fiancé repeatedly asked if she was sure, to which she would reply resolute in not wanting to celebrate. The day after Mother's Day, my sister-in-law called saying that mother-in-law was crying and that we broke her heart by not spending Mother's Day with her. Recently they asked if we could watch her brother, let's call him Carter, on Thursday, yesterday. We told them we had to work and my fiancé suggested we get off work early to watch him. I felt this was a little much as we have been tight on cash due to being laid off in the winter and we're just getting back to work. Plus, he'd only be alone for an hour before we got off work and could go watch him. Later on, we found out that my fiancé's younger sister, 20 female, let's call her Angie, could watch him, but Carter and her parents preferred we did it. We told them we could come after work and they were seemingly annoyed but agreed. We ended up forgetting about it due to being busy back at work and in school, and no one messaged or called us to say anything. Instead, my mother-in-law texted my fiancé this morning to say Carter was bawling and how disappointed everyone was in us. We explained we forgot and we were so sorry, but that wasn't good enough for them. My fiancé asked that my mother-in-law apologize to her brother, to which my mother-in-law said, I'm not telling him anything until you make plans with him and actually come. I don't want to disappoint him again. At this point, I voiced to my fiancé that I felt everyone was being ridiculous. That for him to be bawling over it was extreme, for them to not accept an apology until we showed up was over the top, etc. My fiancé seemed annoyed, like I didn't understand. I explained that I felt that there was a double standard and that her family has different expectations of us than any other siblings. My fiancé didn't really respond to me, so I dropped it. Carter then started messaging her through his mom's Facebook, practically demanding she come over to hang out with him. Now my fiancé is there and has been for a few hours. Carter wants to spend the night at our place, which I am not up for, and my fiancé and her family are unhappy with that. No one else in the family is expected to drop what they're doing to go over there to hang out with Carter, babysit him, go over for dinner, etc. But when we don't, it's a problem. Keep in mind we spend a lot of time with her family even when they let us know plans last minute, often ditching my family for hers or dropping what we're doing. It just never seems to be enough, and we're the only ones who are held to these standards. Also, years ago I voiced to my fiancé, who was my girlfriend at the time, that I felt her father didn't like me. I gave reasoning, and she talked to her mom and older sister about it. They were extremely offended and told my fiancé I was just insecure and projecting onto her. After this, her older sister hated me for about 2-ish years. I learned then not to really voice any opinions I had. However, today I did, and my fiancé seemed annoyed. Now I'm worried the whole family will blame me for the entire situation as they now know I said no to the sleepover tonight. Am I the a-hole for not getting it as my fiancé thinks, or for voicing my opinion, or for not wanting him overnight tonight? Asterisk editing to add my fiancé never sticks up for us or me when stuff hits the fan. When other family members say things like, "Mom tells me you guys never see them or spend time with them," she doesn't say anything. When her mom is pissed when we spend practically any time with my family, my fiancé cries and then leaves to go be with her family. When they get pissed at us, she just takes it. On Easter, Carter decided to do homework in the middle of the living room, which he hates, and proceeded to literally scream at us at the top of his lungs to shut up if we made any noise. Her father got mad at us for distracting him and we left. Her mom was upset that we left and my fiancé just apologized even though I felt we did nothing wrong. Over time it's just gotten worse as I feel they think we accept this treatment, which we pretty much have, as I feel I can't speak up and my fiancé doesn't. It's starting to get to me, and I don't know if I'm being in a hole or if they are. Here is what members of Reddit had to say about this. For not giving in to emotional blackmail? No, you're not the a-hole. Your wife sounds like she needs a reality check. Her parents are bullying her, and you by extension. Sometimes it's harder to convince someone they're being abused than it is to abuse them. I wonder how she'd react if you disengaged from her family. I suspect it might tell you all you need to know about your relationship. Not the a-hole at all, in my honest opinion. You are two young adults who are branching out on their own. This is normal and healthy. What is not healthy is having a future mother-in-law who is demanding and punitive when you don't agree with what she wants. You and your fiancé would be wise to work this out before you get married, or else, I suspect, this will be your future. Your fiancé is understandably used to obeying her mom, and this is first what has to change. She's no longer a child under her mother's control. In fact, she is entertaining a life with you, which means creating your own family unit that, while connected, will be autonomous to be directed as you and your fiancé choose. If she still needs to please her mom and acquiesce to her demands, then she has some growing up and independence to learn. Not the a-hole, not at all. That whole thing is messed up. I think the mother-in-law and older sister-in-law are definitely doing everything they can to drive an emotional wedge between you and your fiancé. And it's just going to get uglier. And you're not getting enough support from your fiancé, but when you bring up just criticisms of your mother-in-law and sister-in-law, it probably makes her feel like you are forcing her to choose between you and her family. Which you kind of are, but it's understandable. You really do need her on your side on this, but it's going to be hard. Remind her of all the occasions where it was impossible to make her MIL happy, like Mother's Day, where she very strongly waved you both off, then told everyone else you abandoned her. Ask her how you both can survive as a couple if you keep letting her treat you both like that. I suspect that you will either work together to lay down ground rules with the MIL about how you will be treated in the future, or you will separate as a couple. Because that is where you will probably end up if you continue to allow the in-laws to treat you like this. Good luck. Shalom. Not the a-hole. OP, your in-laws are controlling and emotionally abusive, but she can't see it, so anytime you mention it, yeah, it looks like you're lying and starting crap. You need couples counseling and you need it before you marry. There you can discuss this with a neutral therapist to help. Once it starts, she may start to see the abuse, and inland, then I would recommend she do therapy on her own. You'll want her to see this issue before you marry, because after will be way too late. First and foremost, they will take over the wedding, and once they've done that, they'll think they can truly control your life, and they will pick your home, your kids' names, and if you're not on board, they will work to remove you as an obstacle to their control. OP, if she not on board for couples counseling, then you need to decide if you want to marry her and this family with her not having you back. Her family is a problem, but her and her not standing up for you and your relationship is the bigger problem. Our next story comes from user current writing 477 and is titled, "Am I the a-hole for giving autistic sister a reality check?" My autistic sister is a real headache. People shower her with pity and praise for the most basic tasks, like correctly pronouncing a word or doing her chores. This constant recognition for simple responsibilities at her age only fuels her ego, and it's exasperating. I'm the neglected one in the family, the only one actually holding things together. My parents keep pushing me to be understanding, but it's tough when she's always the favored one just because of her disability, making it impossible for me to feel sorry for her. I didn't hold back and called her a retard when she insisted I should study, oblivious to the fact that I already had. The frustration peaked, especially considering she caught me on my phone at that very moment. It's infuriating, particularly because she enjoys additional perks at school, being part of a special program with simplified lessons. I straightforwardly told her she was incompetent, pitted for constant praise, and not as special in the way she perceives. She cried that day, and my parents scolded me, accusing me of being mean, treating her like an enemy and a punching bag. They insisted she was just like everyone else, but I can't shake the feeling they're just finding ways to cope because one of their kids turned out to be a total failure. If you could identify more of her flaws in the responses, I could compile a list showcasing what complete strangers notice but she can't see, aiming to make her realize. Here's what Reddit had to say about this one. You the a-hole. You can't lift yourself up by dragging others down. Wow, congrats, you just won the Sibling of the Year award. Nothing like a good old reality check to start off the day, right? I mean, who needs positive reinforcement or support when you can just call your sister a retard and tell her she's incompetent? Classic sibling bonding material right there. And bonus points for throwing shade at her special school program, because why should she get any accommodations, am I right? Keep up the good work, I'm sure your sister really appreciates the tough love approach. You the a-hole. You the a-hole. Nobody with a disability or condition chose it for themselves. Disabilities can make many aspects of life challenging. Everyone, regardless of ability, deserves to have their basic needs met and to have a loving, supportive home. That includes you not being cruel to her in her home. If you don't have something kind to say, you need not say anything. It sounds like you don't feel particularly loved by your sister. Perhaps she has a limited ability to express affection, or by your parents, who may feel occupied and busy due to the disproportionate time that needs to be dedicated to your sister's care. You should apologize to your sister. Really, truly apologize. Explain that you're sorry for calling her a name because you don't want her to feel hurt and that she's important to you because she's your sister. I think taking the initiative to make a card that talks about the good things about her, like her being hardworking or honest, would go a long way. Then have a talk with your parents, maybe after she has gone to bed. Explain how you're feeling overlooked. ask if it would be possible to have one-on-one time with each of them sometimes. Maybe you could join just one parent when they go grocery shopping and stop at a park or beach on the way, if their means are limited, or ask to get an ice cream or go bowling or go to a sporting event with just one of them, if you know it'd be in budget. Don't gloat to your sibling about the outings, let it be a quiet, private event. You the a-hole, this has to be made up. If not, you are a huge douche nozzle that needs the reality check. Imagine being upset a person with a disability gets to be a part of a special program with simplified lessons at school. We like to call that special education. What a loser. The reason she gets praise for doing small things is because she is disabled. She's going to struggle her whole life with things you can take for granted, and that is nothing to be jealous over. You may feel like your parents don't spend enough time on you, which is totally valid and a common feeling of kids with special needs siblings, but taking this out on your sister is misguided. Making her feel awful isn't going to make you feel better. Not the a-hole for feeling like you're missing out on your parents' attention, but you the a-hole for lashing out on your sister. You're right. One of their kids is a total failure. It isn't the autistic sister though. You the a-hole, and an entitled, disrespectful, discriminatory a-hole to boot. Don't call people with special needs retarded a-hole. She does not enjoy the perks of being in a special program. She is in a program where she can still learn and succeed with accommodations to help her get there. She's not getting a handout, she's behind you and being helped up. Man, you suck. The next story we have comes from user ExcellentGene8618 and is titled, Am I the a-hole for ignoring my son's ex's mother when she contacted me about their recent breakup? My female 49, son Gary, who's 16, has been through quite a tumultuous breakup with his girlfriend, Kimberly, also 16, of 1 year. They were very cute together, but I guess young relationships like this are not expected to last, and Gary officially broke up with Kim around mid-February. While my husband and I knew this was just a youthful dalliance, so to speak, Kim's family seemed convinced Gary and Kim were destined for marriage or something of the sort. While Gary has been able to move on pretty quickly and is now involved with another girl, Angela, 16, Kim is completely distraught and has been unable to go forward. I can't blame her entirely. Gary didn't exactly handle the breakup with maturity. But then again, he's only 16. While I can understand why a 16-year-old girl is acting like this, I believe that Kim's parents are being unrealistic. They were heavily invested in Kim staying with Gary and have spoken with my husband and me numerous times about the issue and how they hope Gary and Kim can reconcile. Since the breakup, Kim has been coming to our house many times wanting to talk to Gary about him possibly taking her back. But each time, Gary as gently as possible turns her away, although she's often in tears upon leaving. However, recently he confided in me that he dislikes whenever Kim comes over because he has grown tired of hearing her. Yesterday evening, Kim dropped by. Gary couldn't speak with her because he was out with Angela, so I opened the door instead. When she asked to speak with Gary, I told her that she needed to move on and that she and Gary could no longer be together. We had a brief chat, and she grew quite upset before agreeing to leave. I later received some messages on Facebook from Kim's mother accusing me of interfering in Gary and Kim's relationship and believing that I played a role in Gary leaving her. I decided not to respond to any of them because I feel like these accusations are frankly baseless and unworthy of response. Am I the a-hole? Here is what people of Reddit had to say. Not the a-hole. You did the girl a favor. She may paint it any color she likes, but he made his choice, and her showing up again and again is just failing to respect his decision. If the tables were turned and an ex-boyfriend kept lurking around a girl's door, we'd find him creepy. Exactly this. She's a creepy stalker that most people wouldn't hesitate to condemn if she was male. Her behavior only shows Gary made a good decision leaving her. Damn. You know, I absolutely get that there's drama and everything. They're 16. They're teens. Absolutely normal and healthy to go through those times and heartbreaks and drama and stuff. But her parents? Really? Not the a-hole. Of course you're going to say something. Your child is still a child and sometimes they need an adult to step in and do the things that need to be done. The fact Kim's parents aren't discouraging her behavior is concerning. This sounds like a girl who has had her mommy swoop in and fix every problem, even before they happen. Bad grade, mommy fixed it. Trouble with a friend, mommy fixed it. And now, she wants a boy and mommy can't fix it and is likely encouraging her to get back together. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Notice how the parents were okay meddling in the relationship, but once you spoke your opinion you interfered too much. Use this as a teaching moment for Gary, how to be kind to crazy exes. This girl was perhaps taught that whores date and that is why she feels compelled to keep her first boyfriend whatever the costs. Because with a second boyfriend she will already hear from her parents how she changes boys as socks and how she is spiraling to hell, yeah. I am probably reaching far, but the parents are behaving weirdly enough for me to think something like this, and religion is the most common reason behind these situations anyways. It's good moment for Gary to learn that he can end a relationship when he wishes for any reason, but that compassion should come with it. He can learn here to stand up for himself and not to give in to emotional bullying. Just make sure, if the breakup is recent, that the girl is not pregnant and that's why she's desperate to forcibly keep Gary around. Update from user ExcellentGene8618. I'd like to express my thanks to those who shared their insights on my earlier post and extended their advice. Your input is valued. Regarding the situation with Kim's mother, I've made the decision to refrain from engaging with her messages on Facebook. In fact, I hadn't even logged in until roughly an hour ago. I unfortunately found some more messages written by Kim's mother. She said, in light of Gary's infidelity, it falls upon his parents to rectify the situation and facilitate reconciliation. She also mentioned that Kim has been crying most days and attributes this solely to Gary's neglectfulness. I checked in with Gary to see if he had any interactions with Kim at school today, but he reported none. So I'm hopeful that Kim decides to give him some breathing room. For now, my husband and I think it's best we ignore her mother and hopefully, she also gets the message. This story is coming from user LateComb11 and is titled, Am I the a-hole for putting my profoundly autistic daughter on birth control? I, 45 female, have a daughter, 19 female, Layla, who is profoundly autistic. She was diagnosed as a young child and due to the efforts of her speech and OT, and her own hard work, she has been able to gain a lot of independent daily living skills over the years. As she started hitting the teenage years, though, we started facing an extreme struggle with her period. Due to her diagnosis, she is estimated to have the developmental age of a 3 or 4-year-old child. This makes her month cycle extremely painful and confusing for her. She does not know or understand why she is bleeding or in pain. She suffers from bad cramping, which is difficult to treat as she has a hard time communicating when she is pain. Aside from the pain, the hygienic side of her cycle is very difficult for both her and me. Due to the painful nature of her cycle, keeping things consistently clean is extremely hard as there is a negative association there and she does everything she can to avoid dealing with her period. After trying different occupational therapists and plans, both me and her father, her occupational therapist and her pediatrician have decided the best thing for her is to be put on birth control so her cycles can be managed. We safely have her skip the majority of her cycles during the year, and it has been a blessing for us. It has been 4 months, and not only has she been able to avoid the pain she goes through every month, but her general mood and demeanor has improved as well. Her therapist believes her irregular cycle was causing her a lot of anxiety. The issue comes with my sister-in-law Ashley. She was over at the house yesterday having lunch with us when she asked how Layla had been doing recently. I told her that she was doing very well and explained to her the changes we made in the last few months. Ashley was horrified. She started ranting about how I am taking away my daughter's autonomy by putting her on birth control without her consent and that the long-term effects could hurt her fertility. Layla will never have children, and will never have an intimate relationship with others due to her developmental age. I tried explaining this to sister-in-law, but she held firm. I honestly don't know if she has a very good grasp on autism or developmental disorders at this point. I ended up asking her to leave as she was getting louder and I didn't want her to upset Layla. I let my husband know what had happened when he got home from work. Ashley had already texted him trying to shame him for allowing Layla to be put on birth control. She has now involved my mother-in-law and has even reached out to my own mother over Facebook, claiming my husband and I are taking away our daughter's autonomy. I really think that the birth control was the right choice for our daughter, but the constant barrage of insults is starting to make me question things. Am I the a-hole? Here is what Reddit said. As a father of an autistic child, sincerely F your sister-in-law and anyone who agrees with her. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law has no right to an opinion in the situation. You did not unilaterally make this decision, you did so based on recommendations of professionals. I'm not sure where you're located, but period underwear has become quite common and may be helpful for your daughter during the times she has her period. I suggest you don't discuss your daughter's condition or treatment with your sister-in-law in the future. Your sister-in-law is an ass. There was actually a family that was in the news years back fighting in court to get their nonverbal and severely delayed daughter a hysterectomy. They won the case. It was interesting to me since so many people didn't even stop to consider the actual patient's quality of life. If it improves her quality of life, then good. My special kid is much higher functioning than OP's, but we still have letters of conservatorship over medical and money matters. There's a reason, and everyone from the doctor to the educators to the public defender agree. This is a medical decision. OP should take the lesson, though, and put sister-in-law on an information diet. She is not safe with confidential information. Absolutely, I am autistic and I am also pregnant with my first child. When I was a child and a teenager, when I had a headache, I would bang/punch my head enough to give myself concussions, trying to make it go away. I was put on lithium and a whole lot of other concoctions in order to stabilize my mood while I did therapy to learn coping mechanisms. Can you imagine if this girl got pregnant, what she might do if she doesn't understand what's happening inside of her? The consequences could be horrific. Add to that the fact that she can't consent to sex either. OP is doing her absolute best to care for her child who isn't capable of making these decisions herself and is in pain. Sister-in-law really seems to be hung up on virtue signaling and doesn't even try to comprehend the reality of what they have to deal with. In the US, it's a bit murkier due to our history. It used to be that autistic folk, mentally delayed folk, those deemed mentally incompetent due to mental health issues, that included the quaintly titled female hysteria, were all lumped together and if the family couldn't cope or the doctor decided, were placed in homes. Once in the home, many women were given a hysterectomy without consult or consent. It was deemed good to weed out the mentally defective and keep the hospital from being sued for pregnancies on the helpless patients if their caretakers raped them. So yeah, a grim history that took place at the same time as lobotomies to make the patients more pliant or easier to handle for the home staff. So there's now laws in place to prevent that from happening, easily anyway. OP, you, your husband, and your daughter's medical team made a considered and difficult decision that is right for your daughter. She is less stressed and confused with something you and her medical team cannot completely explain in a way that is retained to ease that distress. Don't listen to your sister-in-law, she wasn't there for the distress and heartbreak of making that decision, nor for all the little and major things that went into even considering it. As a doctor, I think you did the right thing. This is between you, your daughter, and her doctor. Your daughter needs to make these decisions as she does not have the capacity to decide for herself, and it sounds like you and her medical team agree this is best for her. Birth control essentially has no effect on long-term fertility. But also, we should not be prioritizing the fertility of someone with severe mental disabilities over their comfort. Periods are painful and distressing, and she could easily spend the next 30 years suffering for 1 week out of every month. Frankly, the idea of inflicting that on anyone is cruel, especially they can't understand what is going on and why it keeps happening. Birth control can be low risk and make periods much more manageable or even remove them completely. There are multiple cases where people in your daughter's position are given birth control or even surgical procedures to alleviate their suffering. I'm also deeply disturbed that she thinks her niece will ever be mentally ready or able to consent to sex and pregnancy. I hope it doesn't happen ever, but if she is sexually assaulted, as any sex would be rape given her lack of capacity, the last thing she would need would be a pregnancy and child. I feel like your sister is one of those pro-lifers that prioritize women popping out children over all else. Sounds to me both sister-in-law and mother-in-law are in deep denial over Layla's limitations. If her periods are stressful for her, then anything to limit those stresses are important for her well-being. The fact that sister-in-law didn't want to hear the reasoning proves that she is ignorant and in denial. Ask them who she would be having children for, given that her symptoms mean that she wouldn't be able to raise a child herself. If you want to hear it from a mom who is the guardian of her 21-year-old profoundly autistic, non-verbal adult son, you absolutely did the right thing. I hope you've made sure you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's with all the legal issues of managing your daughter's care, so no one blindsides you with any sort of legal AFS bullshit. I also happen to have a backup guardian from an independent agency, so if I become incapacitated or worse, there is a mostly seamless transition. Message me if you are in the USA and want more info. Our last story for today, we have a story from Scientist Alternative titled, "Would I be the a-hole for calling CPS on my sister-in-law?" Before we begin, I would like to give a content warning. The following story contains themes of abuse. Viewer discretion is advised. I, 22, and my wife, 23, have recently come into contact with her estranged sister, 24, and her family last year. They introduced two bright young nephews to us that we soon fell in love with. They've been separated since birth because they all have different mothers and their father was imprisoned. Because of this, however, they've all had very different upbringings. The sister was sexually abused as a child, which of course led to many psychological and developmental issues. She was taken away from her mother and was raised by her grandmother, who's a known narcissist. I don't say that as an exaggeration either. In the short time we knew her, sister-in-law helped move the grandmother from New York to Ohio after remarrying, then refused to compensate or take sister-in-law back to New York. She called my wife since she had nobody else to call, and we were the ones willing to help. We all decided to go no contact with the grandmother afterwards. We wanted to help her with whatever we could, and as we grew closer she began opening up to us more about her life. Telling us about the relationship she's been in since high school with the father of her children. However, her husband wasn't the guy we all thought he was. She would tell us about his abusive behavior, how he would hurt her both physically and emotionally through insults and constant degradation on social media. He of course thinks this is somehow love and normal, as his father also abused his mother when he was a child. For the rest of the time we knew her until recently, these stories would be all we talked about when she came over. We seemed to be making progress on getting her to realize that none of this was not normal and would tell her the dangers of domestic violence and the effects it would have on her children. She claimed to understand, but told us she was fine and not to worry because she wanted her children to live in a home with both biological parents. It was clear that this was due to her attachment issues that developed during adolescence, but she didn't seem to understand that her and her children's safety was genuinely in danger. She claimed the children didn't know about the abuse, but her stories have always seemed to contradict the reality of the situation. Just last Halloween, after a scary movie night we had at my house, another incident occurred. She was accused of cheating on him since he wasn't invited, he was and refused the invitation, and because of that they got into a fight where he assaulted her again. The police were called and he was removed for the night but returned the next day. When telling us about what happened, she included the detail that when he was taken out of the house her child approached her and asked, "Is mommy okay? Did daddy hurt you again?" It was clear that the children were aware of the abuse and were afraid of their father. It was even to the point where her son was afraid of me and would constantly ask my wife if she was okay, as if I was also abusing her. We told her that this is likely because he's growing up around all this violence and he's making generalizations about all relationships that resemble his parents, which she agreed to and told us this happens a lot. We urged her many times to leave for the safety of her and her children, but she would always refuse, even telling us that if she did die she would be fine with the outcome. Nothing seemed to be changing, but it seemed like she was becoming more aware that this wasn't what she truly wanted. However, this all changed a month ago when her and my wife got into an argument over my wife's birthday party of all things. Sadly, the situation would take a violent turn with sister-in-law having a meltdown, her and her husband would show up to my house banging on the door trying to fight us. We simply called the cops to have them removed and have gone no contact since due to the escalating tension. The husband has a criminal past and sister-in-law has a history of documented mental episodes, so the likelihood of something happening was pretty high. I won't allow anyone to pose any danger to my wife, so unfortunately, I'm in the process of getting an order of protection for her safety as I work far away and she stays at home most of the week. I don't know if the children are being abused, but I know that this is definitely affecting them. Now that we're separated, and she is alone with nobody but her husband, I'm afraid they're going to slip back into their old dynamic where nobody comes to save her and something happens. I also don't want any resentment or for anyone to think this is some sort of revenge, but I'm honestly just worried about the kids at this point. So that's why I want to know, would I be the a-hole for calling CPS? Here is what Reddit had to say. Not the a-hole. Hurry and call before he starts abusing them. He's literally repeating the cycle. He saw his mom get abused, now his kids see it. It's worth then possibly going no contact and just prepare for them to come to your house again if they suspect it's you. Cameras, alarms, good locks/long screws, etc. etc. Not the a-hole. Do it. Those children know exactly what is going on and it's messing them up. They think this is what men do to women and will likely end up just like their father. Call CPS ASAP and update us. Thank you for watching. If you haven't done so, hit that like and subscribe.